Hey. Okay, we are live. Hello, everyone. I am so excited to be here. I haven't done a live in a minute. I think the last time I did a LinkedIn live with Shelly Kemmer was in the summer, and I did a LinkedIn live with Felipe about a month ago. But I'm just so happy to be live on LinkedIn. This is super fun and super exciting. I'm Sumana Jetty. I'm going to be your co-host for the rest of the hour that we're going to have with Shelly Kemmer. This is a LinkedIn Live brought to you by the Workplace Wellness Collective, and we're going to be talking about the hidden benefits of caregiving. That's the topic that's going to happen. It's in the bottom there. How it enhances our workplace skills. I want to talk about the intersectionality of caregiving and how workplaces can benefit by having caregivers support, and what are some of the skills that we need. We're also going to talk about, of course, burnout and things like that, because that's a big part of being a caregiver, and we're noticing that in our workplaces and in organizations. So that's also going to be part of the discussion. And I encourage you to tell me where you're from. This is a highly interactive, highly engaged LinkedIn Live. You've seen some of my lives before. I want to hear from you. This is a show for you. So please make sure in the chat box, as I can see all of your comments up here. So please tell me where you're from. Give me a hello. Give me an emoji. Tell me how you're feeling on this beautiful Wednesday in October, and give me a bit of an update. Tell me how your summer's been. I really just want to hear from you, because it's been a while since we've caught up, so I just want to hear from you. So get that chat going. We're going to have some time for some Q&A, so any questions and comments that you have, we will answer them. But remember, this is all about caregiving. So if you are someone that's taking care of a loved one, if you are a parent that has responsibilities outside of the scope of your parental domain, if you're someone who's struggling with burnout, or if you're someone that's having workplace issues, tell me those things, and we're going to have a really fantastic, wholesome discussion. Of course, evidence-based, because that's what the vibe is here. We're going to do that, and super, super excited to have all of you join us. And make sure those questions and comments are coming in. We're going to put those live on the screen. We have Matt from Lemon from Heaven, who is producing in the back end. We have Shelly waiting in the green room, and we're going to bring her up in just a second. We have Angie. Angie, hello from to Calgary, people. Well, hello, Angie from Calgary, and Farah from Calgary. I haven't seen you guys in a while. It's so nice to have you on the live. And I'm sure you'll find this one really interesting. So please invite people, tag them. If you find this conversation helpful, put their names in the chat box and tag them, and invite people and share the live with other people. And this is also being restreamed to YouTube. So if you are not someone who enjoys watching LinkedIn Lives and you want to watch it on YouTube, the replay on YouTube is slightly a little bit better. So if you want to watch the replay there, you can definitely go to YouTube and watch the replay, or also just watch the live on YouTube or LinkedIn, whatever you feel. All the comments are going to come from both the platforms. So we are very inclusive in how we're trying to restream this to both the platforms. Hello to Lizane, listening from sunny Oakville, Ontario, Canada. Such a pleasure to meet you. Hello, Damien. So nice to see you. Marcia, so nice to see you from Washington, D.C. Wonderful, beautiful people. Thank you for joining us. The hidden benefits of caregiving. That's the vibe. Let's bring Shelly up on the stage, because she is the guest of honor. I am so delighted to have her. Hello, Shelly. She is the parent and caregiver burnout strategist with the Workplace Wellness Collective. She does tremendous amount of work in the burnout space and the wellness space to support not just organizations, but also individuals. She has a medical background. She also just recently launched a guidebook called The Dual Collision. So we'll talk more about that as an introduction, and feel free to check out. We'll put the link in the bottom bar here so you can explore what that is. But Shelly, tell me how you're doing, and tell us about yourself a little bit.
Sure. So my name is Shelly. As you mentioned, I'm a board certified physician assistant, and I'm also a precision nutrition certified coach. That in and of itself is more for my own personal understanding of how nutrition and burnout kind of intersect. And then also I'm a caregiver well-being strategist for the Workplace Wellness Collective. So that's how we are connected here. I know we've done an interview in the past. It's been a while, but I'm happy to be here. And as Sumana mentioned, I also wrote a workbook over the summer called Dual Role Collision. That's all focused on burnout prevention and mitigation of burnout. It is primarily for parents, although there is definitely some crossover with caregivers, and I will be putting out one that is specific to caregivers in the next, who even knows, maybe a few months, maybe longer, but that is on the docket for me.
I love that. And what I really love about the work that Shelly does is, even though the role, the expertise that she brings in is for parents and caregivers, I am not a parent. I have a mom that I take care of, but even just not having, the parental responsibilities, I learn a lot from the content that she posts regularly on her Instagram channel at Run Tell Mom. So I feel like it's important for me to tell everybody here that you should follow her. It's so important to follow good creators, and she's one of those people that takes that evidence-based research and really transforms it into something that makes sense. And we're not talking, the same diluted things that we hear about burnout and wellness and caregiving and all the other stuff that is all over Instagram, TikTok, social media. We don't do that. One of the things I love about Shelly is that the information that's provided is really backed by science, and she makes it so easy so that it really caters to a larger audience. So that is one of the reasons I'm really excited to have her on the show, and that's why she is the parent and caregiver burnout strategist for the Workplace Wellness Collective. So if there's any questions or concerns, make sure to check out our website as well, runtellmom.com, and there's other information about her. But what we're going to do right away, Shelly, is
Yes.
actually maybe tell me a little bit about how your summer's been. I haven't actually caught up with you. How was your summer?
Yeah, it was great. Having two kids at home, we have a 6-year-old and a 13-year-old. They both like, two different things. And so it's always interesting to see what they're going to want to do over the summer. One had certain types of summer camp, the other one was doing sports. So it was busy, to say the least, but I am looking forward to next few months. We're going to get to see some shows, going to go to Canada. That's, where exactly, and I know that's where you're at. We're going to go to Vancouver, which
Nice.
is close by, but we're going to go see a Cirque show out there. So that should be fun. But yeah, summer was really nice. And
Amazing.
yeah,
And I know I remember, I don't know if it was the last session that we did. So we did do a part one of this session in the summertime. So if you're interested in watching the replay, we did find the replay is actually on our Workplace Wellness Collective channel. But if you go to YouTube, we've taken some like really amazing points from the replay from the summer, and there's 4 episodes as part of a playlist that you can watch to learn a little bit more on the basics of parental and caregiver burnout and some strategies that were shared during that show. But I think I read, or maybe we had a conversation then about you being afraid of bears, and you were like, I want to come to Canada because there's bears in Canada. Was that you?
oh yes. Well, we did see a bear,
Oh, you
and
did
it
see
was
a
very
bear.
close.
Oh my God.
Yes, we did see a bear. It was really close, when we were in Whistler, actually, and it was rolling around the grass. It was very cute to kind of see. I call a bear cute, like bears are gigantic, but rolling around the grass, like eating grass, playing in the flowers. That part was sweet, but it was a little too close. Like it was literally outside of where we were staying, and so I think. My maternal instinct for that kind of kicked in. I started walking backwards, still facing the bear, wasn't running or anything. Kids were really excited about that, wanted to get pictures and stuff. But yeah, I like them at a distance, I would say. But nonetheless, we saw a bear.
That,
Yeah.
and they're scary. It's
We
so
saw
weird.
multiple, actually.
Oh yeah, they're everywhere. And actually, just a couple days ago, that I saw, actually today, this morning, I saw something on CTV News here in local Canada here, that there was a bear attack. There was a grizzly that
Mm.
actually killed 2 people in the backcountry. It
Oh,
was really, really sad, and I was like devastated just to hear that. But things like this can happen. So, anyways, away from the bear
yes,
conversation into something more fun. Now, I know this topic, the hidden benefits of caregiving, how it enhances workplace skills. Now, you
yes,
brought this topic up to me because there was an HPR article about it. So just tell
yes.
me a little bit about like what made you inspired to talk about this particular topic.
Yeah, so I think we hear a lot about burnout on social media, and we kind of get the distilled version of what it is, and what's going on. But I think once you start kind of looking at some of the statistics to see what is truly kind of unraveling in the United States and the lack of infrastructure that we have here for caregivers, that made me kind of think like, are we going in the wrong direction with how we're handling it? If people aren't necessarily getting better from it, are we giving them too many things, too many responsibilities to do on their own, instead of helping, either in the workforce, in providers' offices, at home, things like that. So, one of the things I wanted to start with, and it popped up this morning on my feed, is just like looking at stats. So stats are indicating that caregiving is becoming increasingly common in the American workforce. So I think it was Deborah Porter, I took a note, roughly 50 million Americans are working parents,
Mm-hmm.
and 59% of American families have two working parents. And
Mm.
so when I started reading this HBR article that I'll kind of talk about, it made me think of, the lack of infrastructure to support caregivers. So I'm talking about, companies not adapting their caregiver friendly policies, but also recognizing kind of the valuable skill sets that caregivers are bringing to the table. It's not just about, we say, yes, employee well being, but businesses don't necessarily want to hear that. They want to hear, how does this help my bottom line? How does this
Mm.
enhance company culture? How does this increase productivity? So I think until we're speaking that language to companies, as much as we offer workplace wellness initiatives, we have to speak to that and how caregivers are assets to the companies and organizations. So I think that slight pivot actually makes a difference.
Yeah, yeah. So, folks that are watching, I'm curious if you can, of course, stay engaged and interact with us as much as possible. In the chat box, I do want to hear from you. Do you identify yourself as a caregiver? Are you a caregiver? Are you a parent? Are you both? Put that in the chat box because I just kind of want to see what we have and who we are, and learn a little bit about yourself as well. And welcome, Milat. Nice to see you from Lilburn, Georgia. So, G is Georgia. Is that what that is? Welcome to the show as well. Now, put that in the chat box. Tell me what, I know there's a bit of a lag between how when I speak and what you hear on LinkedIn Live, but I will keep an eye on the chat box while you enter that information. Now, let's get right into sort of this HBR article. When I read it, I found it really exciting. One
Mm-hmm.
of the things in the article, it says that caregiver employees bring a unique value to the companies. So I'm
Yes.
wondering if we can kind of talk about, like, how do caregiver experiences enhance the company culture? Maybe let's start there, and then we'll add some other questions that I have, and then we'll just see what the audience has to say as well.
Sure. So I made a list of a few things that kind of popped out at me, and things that I hear a lot from people who are talking about,
Mm-hmm.
parents and caregivers in the workforce and what, they uniquely are bringing as far as being an asset. So for instance, enhanced empathy. So people say that caregivers are more naturally attuned to that emotional well-being of those around them. So you're
Mm-hmm.
thinking about, fostering more of a compassionate work environment, and then how that kind of it has the potential of increasing employee retention and
Mm-hmm.
engagement.
Mm-hmm.
Better collaboration and teamwork. So, for instance, caregivers, you're thinking of the skills that are developed through managing family dynamics. So, if you have
Uh-huh.
somebody who is ill in your family and you are the lead person on taking, care of this individual, how you're communicating with one another. Maybe there's a lack of collaboration between two individuals, and you're the person who is saying, okay, well, now at this point in time, this is where things are progressing to. We need to start thinking about X, Y, and Z. So thinking
Mm-hmm.
about like teamwork there. So that crosses over into the workplace collaboration and teamwork. Time management. I know a lot of people talk about, like, we need to strengthen our time management skills. I think parents and caregivers are already doing that. They're already masters of that. You're thinking about juggling multiple responsibilities, whether it's in the home, dealing with appointments, going to the pharmacy, calling insurance companies. And that allows people to kind of prioritize things in different ways and manage their time. So
Mm-hmm.
those few things. And then I'm thinking about, in the article, it talks about increased emotional intelligence. So when you're balancing the needs of the caregiving role and also, the emotional intelligence of being able to, um, you know, read the situation for what it is. If things are progressing and getting worse, like, how can you be a support system for that individual that you're taking care of? How can you be a support system to maybe other family members who aren't coping as well? So these are just a few things that, I don't think we highlight them as much, especially like the emotional intelligence component.
Mm-hmm.
People always talk about communicating and strong resilience and being able to adapt. But that's a big part of it, is that kind of emotional intelligence. And sometimes it feels like it lacks, especially when we're constantly on a computer and having to communicate via messaging on
Yeah.
Slack or something like that. Like, how do you convey emotion like that?
Yeah.
It can be misconstrued.
Yeah.
So those were a few things that kind of popped up when I was reading it. Of course, constant interaction with individuals. So having
Mm,
to be like with the communication skills, like ping ponging in between people, being that liaison for the patient or the person that you're the caregiving, and having to do that with managers, supervisors, people on your team. So these are all some of the many components that caregivers kind of bring to the table.
the
And
culture. Yeah. And it's really interesting too, because I was thinking about a lot, because I don't work in an office anymore, but when I
yeah,
used to see lots of parents like you're talking about time management and managing family expectations and managing your children and managing the schedule and
right,
that grocery list and like all of these different things. I
yeah,
would see parents constantly just like juggling their personal phone and their work phone and trying to manage all these expectations. But
right.
for me, like that was never really the case. And I would always be like, how do you guys do this? Like, how does your brain function that way? So just kind of,
Hmm.
pivoting a little bit towards that, with a lot of neurodiversity conversations that are happening right now, and a lot of people saying, I have ADHD and I have all these other
Hmm.
challenges that make me not function well. What can workplaces do? Do you think it's a good idea for when an individual goes and say they're looking for a job? I know the job market is really intense right now, and if they're
Yes.
looking for a job, do you think it's wise to tell the employer that, hey, I am a caregiver and I bring these skill sets to the table and it's actually going to be an asset to you? I would assume so. Or do you think employers are going to take it negatively and say that, what, you got too much going on, I'd rather hire that other person, who doesn't have all this other stuff? So
Right.
I just wondering what your thoughts are, what you've seen in other industries and in your practice and things like that.
Yes. In fact, I was talking to a friend who I called her a household engineer because
Okay.
she's like, I'm a stay at home parent. I'm like, no, you're a household engineer. I'm like, we need to really kind of structure, and that's not my term. I heard that from somebody else who probably heard that from somebody else. But when I heard that, I just thought it was brilliant because we often undermine the value of parents and caregivers and the work that they're doing at home, but we know that it's more than full-time work. All the stats, they tell us that it's full-time work. It's a six-figure job that you're not getting paid
Mm,
for. There's been arguments I've seen on social media that talk about, oh, well, if you want to get paid, you shouldn't be a parent. It's like, those things to me are moot points. Or if you want to be a caregiver, then that's when you should be paid. But if you're a parent, you shouldn't be paid for your work. I digress. I won't even go into that one right now. But what I will say is, I do think that organizations need to begin by acknowledging the reality that many of their employees are caregivers.
mm,
And I do think I lead with that. In fact, anytime somebody sees my CV when I'm doing a talk or anything like that, I always put in there that I am a parent. And that
mm.
was a change that I made over the past year because once you list the skill sets of parenting and caregiving, it's massive and there's always overlap in your CV and resumes and job description. You will see it everywhere. Um,
Yeah.
I do think that it is a benefit to have caregivers and parents. I think we need to modernize what we're doing as far as the 5-day work week. I don't necessarily think that is the best way to go. Of course, this is
Mhm,
my own opinion,
mhm.
and certainly the opinion of some other people as
Yeah.
well. But yeah, I do think that it's an asset. We just need to think more about scheduling adjustment, putting value in attending family related events, thinking more about like offering certain legal programs, healthcare, finance advice, like anything that can help a caregiver kind of offset that other load that they have going on.
Yeah.
I think that is a big positive.
Yeah. So just kind of piggybacking on that one, and
Yeah.
how do we kind of think, how do we shift the company culture so that we make it more caregiver friendly? I think,
Mm.
you and I have had lots of conversations about the culture of the workplace, and we
Yes.
want it to be free from burnout. We wanted to have inclusive language. We want to be able to create leaders that are supporting mental health. There's so many domains to that. So I'm just wondering if you can share a little bit
Yeah.
about what are some components that organizations can think about, just like the 9 to 5 may not always work for caregivers, to make it more caregiver friendly?
Yes, it's an awesome question. I think there's a few things. So let's think about groups first. So
Mm-hmm.
facilitating support groups within that organization, where caregivers can share their experiences, their strategies, and their resources for thinking about like ERGs, employee
Mm-hmm.
resource groups. Creating a company culture where employees actually feel safe in discussing their caregiving responsibilities. I think a lot of people go into work and the whole mentality is, I'm going to go into work, I'm not going to talk about my issues, and I'm not saying to air everything out there. I'm saying we need to be more realistic in sharing what is potentially impacting our job or impacting our hours, because I think everyone from time to time deals with something, has to manage something else, and it will at some point impact your work or it'll impact your household. We need to
Mm-hmm.
be more human about the human experience of being an employee, right? We're not robots. We're
Mm-mm.
humans. And until we are all at that point where everything is taken over by robots, and obviously I hope that never happens, but I'm just saying we need to treat people like humans that are going through things. We all
Mm.
are.
Yeah.
Encouraging open dialogue where you can have company culture where employees are feeling safe in discussing these things with managers, with human resource staff, and recognizing also and utilizing the skills of caregivers that I mentioned prior. These
Mm-hmm.
things, these skill sets are great. These are management level, supervision level, top tier C-suite level
Yep.
things that you have to do, soft and hard skills. Lots of parents and caregivers have them naturally. They've kind of developed them over time. And then, as I mentioned before, like with resource groups, employee assistance programs are another component of that.
Mm.
And we have, programs that talk about financial assistance. Maybe you are taking care of your mother and your mother needs X, Y, and Z, but you're picking up extra hours in order to take care of your mother because her, medications are getting more expensive. Like we need to think about the human that's in the role instead of
Yeah.
just treating them like they're just operating on a cog.
Yeah, and I think that we've talked about ERGs a lot, even in the
Yes.
past when I had the same conversation. I'm curious of the people that are watching, if this is, if ERG is accessible and available in your organization. If it is, give me a thumbs up or give me a little a yes in the chat box. And B, if it's not available, do you feel comfortable starting one up? In the summer, I did
Mm.
a workshop for the mayor of Edmonton, and there was probably 200 or so people in that workshop for the
Mhm.
conference. And I asked this exact question, and guess how many people raised their hand when I said, hey, how many of you guys have an ERG? And these are people from various
Mm.
different companies, different service providers. One person out of the group of 200 or so people said, I have an ERG that is part of my company culture.
Yeah.
But people didn't actually even know what that was. They were not familiar with that language, or like, how do I even
Mhm.
create an ERG? What are the components of it? Like, what value does that bring? So I'm kind of curious from the people that are watching, like, if this is something that is available to you, or is this something
Mhm.
that you're feeling comfortable that even if I don't have one, I can go to my boss and say, hey, I need to start an employee resource group for caregiving, for example. And
Mhm.
this is kind of what I'm looking for. So say, for example, Shelly, there's an individual like that in our discussion who is looking to start an employee resource group for caregiving
Mhm.
conversations. What could they start to think about and talk about with their manager to even get the ball rolling?
I think the power is in numbers. So I think the first
Mm.
thing you need to think about is how many people that you know or that you're aware of within your company that are parents and caregivers, and what are the common pain points that they're dealing with. Is it the lack of flexibility? If you're working, and I always go to tech because I do live out here in Seattle, and tech
Yeah.
things that like the tech schedule kind of pops up to me with people having to go back into the office. Now, a lot of these jobs over the past 3 years have been done remotely, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I'm speaking specifically to tech. And so having, bringing people back into the office and saying it's for the culture of the office, is it really like, what is the culture of the office? What does it look like? Are you really interacting with other people? Or, is it causing you to fill up your gas tank way more and it's costing you more money and you're not getting reimbursed for it? So I think one of the first things is, as I mentioned, numbers. So you want to think about how many people you could kind of assemble in these groups and what kind of conversations you're going to have about these pain points. Is it transportation, lack of flexibility? Is it the financial reimbursements for daycare? Is it,
Mm.
lack of support getting to and from appointments if you are caregiving for either an elderly individual, somebody who's going through chemotherapy, whatever the case may be. These few things, when I start kind of understanding like the different needs for these employee resource groups, is assembling those questions and what would your response be? Because if you're going to have a question that you present, come with a solution, or at least come with some options for solutions. So for instance, if you're talking about workplace flexibility, what would a hybrid schedule look like? How has it been successful in the past? Show your numbers. Bring the numbers of like, I've done this in the past. I've worked virtually before during the pandemic, and this is how things worked out. Or, when we had a different schedule, this is what it looks like. So kind of painting the picture, I think, is one of the biggest kind of alluring ways of having these conversations with, staff, management, and, admin, if you want to make changes. And of course, if you're working within a group, kind of, take all of it in, write your notes, come up with the solutions, and then follow up on them after you've had a discussion with whatever team that you're discussing it with. Let's say it's your manager. Make sure that
Mm.
you are following up. Hold them accountable for that follow-up,
Yes.
because you're saying, this is the group that we're coming with. These are our concerns. This is what's being raised within our group most frequently, and here are the solutions. Now, how can we collaborate on making this work for both of us so that you can get the productivity that you need and I can get the flexibility that I need?
Yeah, I think that, and I love that the point that you made about, don't just like come with a problem. I know a lot of us
Yes.
who are employees, we tend to be in that mindset of like, I have all these problems, I have all these problems, and I have
Yeah.
no solution, right? Because they feel
Right.
overwhelmed and they think that I'm stuck in this problem. Sometimes it is about, walking away, looking at that big picture. For example, if there's something like an ERG that you're trying to initiate in your organization, it's as simple as like, well, this is a problem. I don't have it available. What can I
Right.
stop and think and create this big picture to, let my manager and my workplace know that this will look better? Like painting that picture, I think that was a phenomenal comment that you made, is like people want to be able to see beyond, just the problem and beyond just
Yes.
like, how does this help? Like you said, this needs to help my bottom line. So managers sometimes also need a little bit of a push so that
Yes.
they can, take that up to their bosses and sell it. It's about, I feel like sometimes
Exactly.
it's about a sale. We're entrepreneurs, we know what it's like to sell. It's
Right.
about like, how do I
Right.
sell my case? This is a
Yes.
business case.
You have to make it a compelling case, and that's exactly what it is. Here is your case. This is what we're bringing as our evidence, and this is the solution that we're presenting, or like, our bottom line, and how it's going to impact the business. Businesses are businesses, right? Like, this is you got your walls, you have your ceiling, you have your chairs, you have your computers, you have these things that you have to pay for. Obviously, you have
Yep.
salaries you have to pay for.
Yeah.
So with that understanding, how does it benefit both people? And you
Mm.
have to kind of reach that middle ground. I'm not saying negotiate everything. I'm saying like reaching a middle ground and saying that, if you offer this hybrid flexibility, this is what's been proven before. These are my goals and intentions with working hybrid. This is what you can expect from me, and this is how it will also benefit you, while it's also benefiting me as a parent, amongst many other parents and caregivers that are at the business. So I do
Yeah.
think it's selling the products, right?
Selling yeah, and I think as a caregiver, because we are talking, through this mindset of like, it is an asset. You have
Yeah.
very good skills that
Yes.
and unique skills. We say neurodiversity is an asset.
Yes.
We're trying to bring this conversation about being a caregiver brings you all these wonderful skills that someone who's not a caregiver or a parent, they're not going to fully comprehend that or understand that. So if you have the asset, and if you are looking for opportunities to do hybrid and to,
Hmm.
eliminate these roadblocks in your workflow, sell that, right? Be
Yes.
confident to bring that up to leadership and say, like, this is how this is going to make things better. People always want to hear a solution. People always want to hear, like, how's this going to help the company 3 months from now? And don't
Yes.
just come up and I tell this to clients all the time. Don't just tell your boss, I want to work remote. Why do you want to work remote?
Yes. What is the why?
What is the why? And it's okay if you tell them, like, I am taking care of a sick parent, or I have
Yes.
additional responsibilities. So one other question. I know we're at a 30-minute mark, and folks that are watching, thank you for
Oh,
watching.
sure,
If you have any
sure.
questions for Shelly, please put them in the chat box. But otherwise, I'll ask a question that I have, which is about companies supporting and recognizing caregiver employees. Now, we
Yes.
want the company culture to change. We want to be able the workplaces to recognize these are skills that are very unique to this demographic, and you gave us
Hmm.
those stats in the beginning of the show. So
Yes.
what can companies do to now support and encourage and recognize these individuals? Because we've known this from burnout prevention research, that recognition and reward is a really important part of, like, going to work. People want to
Hmm.
feel that they're of value to the company, and if they do, then they're doing their best. The productivity goes high. It isn't just about, I'm going to put in my 8 hours a day, but it's also about getting that extra recognition. So if there's a CEO of a company that also has, for example, a caregiver responsibilities,
Hmm.
they might want to share their story and say how this has made them a better leader. That's just an example that came to my mind. But
Yes.
what do you think are some other ways that companies can recognize and, provide this sort of positive encouragement to employees who are identifying as caregivers?
Yeah, the one that you pointed out is great. I think spotlighting stories, I think, is really powerful. Sharing a caregiver story within the company newsletter, something
Mm,
that's fostering the culture of acceptance of a caregiver. We hear the term caregiver sometimes, and there's like this vision in our head of what caregivers are doing. You only have the vision of the caregiver doing the caregiving, but there's all the other
mm,
stuff. What about a caregiver who is caring for a child and caring for a parent? Sandwich caregiving. What about parents who are providing care for another individual who maybe is not related to them? Like there's all these other components of what caregiving actually is that we don't recognize, and we distill it down to something that is less valuable in society. So I think the spotlighting stories is great. Employee reward, or okay,
mm,
so recognize and reward skills, caregiving, anything that caregiving brings, whether it's like empathy, teamwork. Can you give bonuses? What would the bonuses look like? Of course, I'm saying bonuses now while everybody is going through, not everybody, but a lot of people are going through tough times with either finding a job, attaining a job, and so forth. But we need to incentivize individuals who are bringing additional skill sets to the table. It's really important. Regular check-ins. Let's, as employers, check in with somebody and point out the things that they are doing well. You want to
mm,
recognize the work that they are doing instead of just coming down like a hammer and saying, you're not able to be here on time. You're 5 minutes late to your meeting. What are they bringing to the meeting? How many people are they guiding? Like, let's think of the positive aspects of what they are bringing. And also asking, how are we meeting your challenges and your needs? If I'm
mm,
an employer and I'm asking somebody else and saying, um, you know, let's say you're noticing somebody is struggling with their caregiving responsibilities. How can I help you face these challenges and needs? Is there something here that maybe hasn't been clear in employee assistance programs that I can give you more information on that can help you? So clarifying those things. And then, of course, mentorship programs, resource groups, things like that. I think if we are offering mentorships to individuals who are caregivers, maybe they are working part-time and eventually they do want to go in full-time and they want to do take on additional jobs at that point, or additional responsibilities.
mm-hmm. Oh, Shelly, we lost you for a second. I don't know.
Do feel, hopefully it didn't freeze. I know it looked like
Oh,
it
no,
froze for a
you're back.
second. I'm
It's
holding on
okay.
to the
You're
fact
back.
that, oh, there you are.
I think we did
Yeah.
freeze for a
But
second.
no, I think a lot of those things, Yeah, a lot of those things are, ways that we can kind of recognize and include caregivers so that they don't feel like, they're on the outskirts just saying, maybe somebody won't hire me because I am caregiving. I think we need to be very transparent. We need, as employers, we need to shift kind of our mindset in thinking, oh, well, hiring a caregiver is a hindrance because they're going to
Mm,
call out all the time, or we need to kind of look at what is the shape of our company, and are we thinking about employee retention? Why are we not retaining people? What does that say
mm,
about us?
yeah.
Right? We always point it to the employee, but is that always the case? Right?
Yeah, and I love all those things that you said, especially about rewarding not just through storytelling, but also through
Mhm.
incentivizing and like,
Yes.
providing different places and spaces and opportunities for people to feel valued. That's one of the
Yes.
biggest things that we want, especially now with inflation. Everything is really expensive and people are trying their best to keep talent in their talent pool. Nobody wants to lose people. Nobody wants to go back and hire and recruit new people because it is very difficult to like have to come back and get a new employee in. But
Yeah.
if you put in the work as an employer and do all of these things that you need to do and make it a caregiver friendly company culture and
Hmm.
reward them and have these safety nets in place that are going to prevent burnout, that are going to ensure that the employee feels valued and recognized in the workplace, then you're
Right.
going to have more of that. People talk. If you're doing something good,
Yes.
people are going to talk. If you're doing
Yeah.
something bad, people are going to talk as well. So you
Yes.
don't want people, you don't want bad press. Maybe sometimes bad press is good press, but we don't want bad press. We want people going and saying, I love the company that I work for. And
Hmm.
very rarely do I hear that comment. But once in a
Yeah.
while, I will hear someone say that my company is great, and then they list out like all these wonderful things that their employer is doing, and I'm like, oh my god, like where is this company, and can we like make this a role model and like copy paste this method and share it with other organizations, because
Yes.
you guys are doing something right. You worked there for like 15 years, you obviously love it, and you're
Yes.
growing and you're excelling, you're developing skills, you're managing your home life, your family life, your professional career. Like this, it's a win-win for everybody. We're at the sort of 37-minute mark. So maybe I'll end by just asking you to share a little bit. I do want to learn about your book because it is an important part of like, what you're doing for the community. You're always doing wonderful things for your clients and
Oh, I
community.
hope
So tell us a little bit about your book.
Yeah. So when I created Dual Role Collision, I was just thinking about that intersection of, being a parent and being a person who's working for pay. I say working for pay because, as I mentioned before, if you're a stay-at-home parent, I still think you're a working parent. I think
Yep.
there's nuance to that. But this, I focus on having it be an e-workbook guide,
Mhm.
and I think more about like this idea of hacks and quick fixes. And I talk about these things and why they're unsustainable. We're in this fast paced world and we're fixated on doing things quickly, changing things quickly. And it's not necessarily the case with burnout, right? If we're nearing burnout or, working on burnout prevention, we need to think about cutting out the hacks and doing things that are sustainable. So, I focus a lot on like research based strategies for how to tackle it. I put in different prompts in there that you could kind of explore. I talk about partnership within the home. I talk a little bit about like the scientific aspects, but not too heady. I wanted it to be very digestible for individuals. So, like thinking about your core values, being very realistic about your expectations at home, managing your resources, what you have, how you can revise them, which ones work for you, which ones don't, because sometimes less is more. And then just thinking about strategy, how you can kind of declutter things in your life so that you're not just necessarily scrolling through social media looking for 10 million tips and tricks on things, how to prevent burnout and bust burnout down and all of these things, but like what actually works. So that's what I put together,
I love
and
it.
I'm hopeful that it's helpful for people. I've
Yeah.
gotten some really nice messages and feedback on it, so it's been great. And then hopefully in the near future, I'll be doing one specifically for caregivers.
Oh, I love that. And I mean, honestly, I know what it's like to put the work and effort into like by doing publications. I publish tons of
Yeah.
research papers, and it's writing something and then, putting it together
Yes.
as a guide and then putting that out into the world. This whole thing is, it takes a tremendous amount of work. And
Yeah.
knowing the type of person that you are and the passion that you bring into wellness in the workplace and to help, this demographic, but also, other community members, I feel like that's what makes it so special. And it isn't just
Mm,
another,
I appreciate
like you
that.
said, a tips and tricks and a hack book. I'm not a fan
Yes.
of that. You're not a fan of that. We really want to
Yes.
give something that's tangible, that you can
Yes.
apply. Applicability, I think, of the strategies is just as important as learning the strategy.
Mhm.
A lot of people don't really pay attention to the two components of it, and I'm learning more even just from my own sort of space here, is that you can have a strategy in front of you, but people don't know how to get there. Like we said, how do you
Yes.
go to your boss and tell them, how do I paint this picture that me working remotely is actually going to be a benefit to all these
Yes.
different areas of my workflow, and it's actually going to help make profits for the company, and you're going to actually end up, being in a better place. So people need those guides and people need those steps, because it may be simple for us because we're in the space, but for a lot
Mhm.
of people, the strategy to applicability, I think there's a disconnect. I'm
Yes.
noticing that. I don't know if you're noticing that in your space and through your comments and things like that on social media.
Yes. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think we're very quick to say we need to do this because this, whoever is posting this online says this works right away. We need to think about what works for us and what works for our situation, our scenario, how many people we have that we're taking care of at home, what our work schedule looks like, how much sleep we're getting, how we're eating. Like there's tons of things that we need to kind of take into consideration and not just kind of apply, this like blanket statement of this is going to work for everyone. It most certainly isn't. Like I can say to somebody, I kind of mentioned this in the workbook, it's like meditation might work for one person, maybe it doesn't work for another. Going
Mm-mm.
on a hike might be something that you enjoy. I don't
Yep.
personally. I love going outside. Am I a hiker? No. As I mentioned, I don't really like bears. I don't like running in the wilderness with wild animals. I feel like that's their place. I know my place. Um, Kudos to the people that do. I think it's
Yeah.
amazing. It's
Yeah.
just not my thing. And
Yeah.
so when you prescribe something for someone else that has nothing to do with them, you're leading them on the wrong path. And so this is
Mm.
why customization and really dealing with the human themselves is really important. And one-on-one, making that one-on-one connection with somebody in the workplace. Like this is what humanizes the workforce.
Mm. Yeah, social support has come up as an evidence-based strategy that I've seen a lot of literature on
Yes.
that over the last little while, where we're
Hmm.
encouraging community building and having the different types of social support available so that
Right.
you can feel comfortable to be like, you know what, today I just need somebody to like do this for me. Like I need
Yeah.
somebody to like go to the mailbox and get the mail for me and like leave it by my door. Like that type of a person that's in your community that you can make that call and they'll do that for you. That's
Hmm.
important. Emotional support, social support in the emotional space, that's important. Who's my person that I can call when I need help about something in my workplace versus who's a person that I can call when I need some help and support in my personal space with my partner or my mom or something like that,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Different people bring different expertise, and we need to have the right inner circle. I always say your inner circle, who are these people, who
Hmm.
can guide you, is just as important as the outer circle of people that you're interacting with, maybe in not as a closed format. But I do love this idea of being flexible and understanding that certain
Hmm.
strategies are not going to work for you, right?
Yes.
For a lot of people who suffer, I actually saw something on TikTok today and I just was laughing because it was like people, with ADHD, they have a really hard time meditating. There's like Usher
Hmm.
playing in their head, all the
Yeah.
songs from the 90s. We want to be at a club. We don't really want to like meditate, and you're trying to meditate with your balance app or Calm or Headspace, and you're like, this is so hard. For me,
Yes.
I've said this before, cleaning is meditative for me. Cooking is meditative for me. Dishes
Hmm.
is meditative for me. Those are
Yes.
all things that I do. That's not your traditional meditation. Of course, I do meditate in other spaces, but I can listen to a lot of like sounds that are irritating for me. I don't like
Hmm.
soundscapes as much. I also don't like a lot of storytelling. The
Hmm.
sleep stories are, they don't work for me. They used to, but they don't anymore. I rather
Yeah.
someone just tell me to like, do a different type of meditation. So I think there's also that. If A
Right.
doesn't work, try B. If B doesn't work, try something else. If hiking is not your thing in the woods, I don't know, go to the gym or, go for a walk or do squats in
Yeah.
your house, do push-ups. There's 100 different things you can do, but it's that
Yes.
it's that customization. You and I talk about that a lot, is how do we customize what works for us so that we're not doing what everybody else is doing.
Yeah, you have to like what you're doing. You have to enjoy it, to say to somebody, yeah, you need to sit down for 10 minutes to meditate. Well, maybe they have a newborn and a toddler. I mean, maybe it's impossible for them to sit down and they're just ruminating in their thoughts. There's other things that people can do to tap into their interests and what calms them. And maybe it's just not meditating. And so that's what, as far as like the workbook was concerned, I was thinking about it, like what is going to work for individuals, and you have to explore that, and exploring that means you have to answer some questions.
Hmm.
And so I think a lot of the prompts and the questions I ask or present is bringing out like what does this mean for you? Like, what does this look like in your house? What does this look like for work? How is this going to work for two individuals that maybe aren't working together really well? Or how can you have older children in your house also help you out? This is all about that collaboration aspect of not just being a party of one that's doing it.
Yes, yes, I love that.
You have to be the party of one doing it all.
Yeah, I love that. Now, before we wrap up, Kate, do you want to tell us? I know you did a conference over the summer. You were
Yes.
speaking at a big conference. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that and what else is coming up for you in the fall? I know you're a very busy lady. What else are you doing?
So I spoke at Postpartum Support International over the summer, and that was great. It was, I kind of I focus more on like parental burnout prevention as a component of family planning, but then there's always other questions because it was a professional conference. So there's a lot of therapists and things like that. So we talk about like how to have these conversations with clients, and then also on your own, recognizing some of these things. So that was one of the big talks. I did a talk at University of Washington over the summer as well, wrote the workbook. I'm going to be doing some, different consulting things over the next probably 3 months with another company who will, I guess, release that information soon. They just went over like a website kind of redevelopment
Rebranding.
there.
Okay. Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
yes, I'm doing like some consulting there. I'm doing less consulting on my own one-on-one because I'm focused more on like larger groups. And then I am going to be going to a safety event,
Mhm.
Child Safety Online, and that's going to be coming up in the next few weeks. So there's things that are cropping up, which is good. And then I'm doing my recertification for my board. So
Wow.
yes, so a lot of studying.
Lots on the go, which I love. I love that you're doing all these wonderful things and supporting businesses, supporting the bigger workplaces. I think you and I are in
Yeah,
the same boat where we don't do one-on-one consulting. We do more B2B stuff where you want to make that big impact to a lot of people. And because a lot of
right.
the models that we're doing are research based, it's kind of easier to share it for that large scale versus the one-on-one
Yes,
stuff. So,
absolutely.
did you do one-on-one for a while and then did you kind of pivot, or have you always just you did that for a
Yeah,
while?
I mean, that was kind of the focus with the workbook is here are
Mhm.
some of the questions that kind of come up and how can I get them to people at
Yeah.
mass?
Yeah.
And so I've been noticing with one-on-one, what becomes very tricky is you don't want to turn into the therapist, right? Because
Mm.
that becomes a part of the issue. And although I am a trained medical professional, licensed board certified medical professional, I'm not going to provide therapeutic advice. That's not the role of my company or what I do. And so I find now that doing B2B is much more impactful because you can kind of set those boundaries from the beginning and have these discussions and have like really good, rich discussions with individuals where there's questions coming back and forth. You have maybe admin asking some questions, employee asking some questions. So everybody's kind of hearing each other asking these things and answering these things
Mm.
and getting that kind of insight. Whereas with one-on-one, sometimes that lost in translation thing then becomes, well, this is what I've learned from one-on-one. I can't take this to my workforce because they're not willing to help me. So how can I help the workforce? How can I help medical clinics? How can I help different clinicians, the patients? That's why B2B I think is so powerful.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Now, what we're going to do for you guys who are still watching, thank you for a few of you that are still watching. All of this is going to be available on LinkedIn as a replay, also on YouTube as a replay. We're going to snip some important things that Shelly has said, and she said a lot of wonderful things and answered some really hard questions live here, which is very challenging to do, but I know she can do it. We're going to make a couple of playlists for you on YouTube so you can learn at your own space and time. And if you've forgotten something and you want that information, that will be available on YouTube. So over the next little while, every Friday or so, we'll put a new clip and you can watch that and learn. And we'll link all of that to the first playlist, which I encourage you to watch because that had some foundational things that we had shared in the summer about caregiver and parental burnout.
Mhm.
So watch that first, all those 4 clips, and then start watching this new stuff after that. And then go to Shelly's website, runtellmom.com. Follow her on Instagram. She's phenomenal. I love her content.
Oh,
And the
thanks.
guidebook, a link is available on the chat box as well. So if there's any questions there, feel free to kind of go there, check out the book. If you have any questions about the book, she's pretty active on Instagram. So that's where you can maybe connect with her and share other information. But for now, I will let you go. I know it's a rainy day in Seattle. It's a
Yes.
bit cloudy here in Calgary as well. So we're gonna say goodbye, but because you and I can talk for hours, we'll be like this
Yeah.
live will never end.
Yes, I know. We could just chat and chat and chat, which is great. We have things to offer, and it's important to have these discussions and to kind of break them down into smaller parts. So I'm always happy to join you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Shelly, so much for your time. And thank you, the
Of
LinkedIn
course.
audience and
Thank
YouTube
you.
audience, for your time. And we look forward to seeing you again. And if you want Shelly to come back again, let me know. We'll figure
Happy
something
to.
out and we'll do another session. And all the information, like I said, will be on all the different channels. And then over the next sort of month or so, there'll be lots of little tidbits that we'll post so you can learn at your own leisure. Because I know sometimes it's hard to join a live in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
We recognize
Yeah.
that. You guys are parents and caregivers, and there's work and all that stuff, which is why the replay
Mhm.
option is phenomenal. So you can kind of do that stuff and Instagram stories and all that stuff. We'll keep you guys updated. And I look forward to seeing you, Shelly, soon. And I have an email
Yeah.
to email you, so I will email
Oh,
you
yeah, yeah,
about
yeah. Of
that as well.
course.
And let's talk about that
Okay.
privately. And Matt, thank you so much for your producing
Yes,
and
Matt.
all your help
Thank
and
you.
support. And we will see you soon. Take care.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.